Welcome back to our third lecture on Gann's Square of Nine. In this session, we are moving beyond the basic layout to decode the master grid's core geometry and draw the lines of force. Subscribe so you catch every step of this technical series. To recap our previous findings, numbers on the face of the square move in a clockwise spiral. This sequence creates a grid where every number occupies a fixed mathematical coordinate relative to the center. This image shows the lower left boundary of the grid. If we track the odd square numbers, 9, 25, 49, and 81, we see they align perfectly along a single diagonal line, moving outward from the center. On the opposite side of the grid, we find the even square numbers. Values like 4, 16, 36, and 64 align in the same way, creating a straight path toward the top right corner. These two lines define the absolute endpoints and beginnings of every 360-degree cycle. Each full rotation around the square is identified by the largest number in that rotation, which always ends on the odd square diagonal. This means the square of 9 is essentially a 360-degree circle compressed into a square format. Because the layout is fixed, the internal angles of the grid act as predictable geometric coordinates. While the spiral is mathematically consistent, it is difficult to use directly on a standard price chart. The cyclical nature of the grid doesn't immediately translate to the linear time and price axes traders use every day. To make the grid functional for analysis, we must bisect its cycles. By identifying the structural beams that hold these numbers together, we can locate specific points of mathematical resistance. Gann categorized these primary structural lines as the diagonal cross and the cardinal cross. These are not decorative shapes. They represent the mathematical dividing lines where market momentum is most likely to encounter a shift. By identifying which numbers fall on these specific crosses, the goal is to define high-probability pivot points based on the square's internal geometry. Figure 11 shows the diagonal cross forming an X shape from corner to corner, housing the key square numbers. The bottom left arm captures odd square numbers, landing on 81, 121, and 169. Following the same axis to the top right, we find the even square numbers like 64, 100, and 144. This diagonal axis is significant because it represents the whole number roots of the grid's cyclical rotations. These fixed coordinates provide a distinct contrast to the empty space found in the opposite corners of the square. In the Gann system, this odd-even diagonal serves as the primary structural foundation, marking the completion of full mathematical rotations. This leads to the second arm of the X, running from top left to bottom right, identified as the 1/2 points. The bottom right section holds the halfway points between an even square and the next higher odd square. The math is precise. For example, the halfway point between 64 and 81 is 72.5. On the grid, the number 72 is positioned exactly where this diagonal line cuts through the rotation. The top left corner performs the same function for the midpoints between odd squares and the next even squares. The halfway point between 81 and 100 is 90.5, which aligns with the top left diagonal. By using the full diagonal cross, we map the cycle's absolute extremes at the squares and their 50% retracement points, establishing a geometric framework for potential price resistance.
The second structural beam is the cardinal cross. As highlighted in Figure 11, it forms a plus symbol with vertical and horizontal axes. This cross bisects the space between the diagonal cross arms, creating a symmetrical 8-point division of the center cell. Numbers on the cardinal cross represent the quarter points of each rotation, the 25 and 75% marks. Just as price often reacts to 50% midpoints, these quarter cycle phases frequently correlate with shifts in market momentum. The cardinal cross identifies these intermediate coordinates, highlighting the specific numbers where a trend may pause before completing a full square. To verify this, we can look past the visual patterns and use pure calculation. We can find any cardinal or diagonal point without needing the physical grid. This formula allows us to move around the face of the square mathematically. It is the technical basis for the indicators we will explore in later chapters. The calculation is straightforward. Find the square root of your starting number, add or subtract a specific fraction based on the target angle, and then square the new result. To calculate a half rotation, or 180 degrees, you add 1.0 to the root. For a quarter rotation of 90 degrees, you add 0.5. For example, starting at the odd square 81, the square root is 9. To move 1/4 of a rotation inward, we subtract 0.5, giving us 8.5. Squaring that result gives us 72.25, landing us on the cardinal cross. This proves that the geometric shapes of the x and the plus symbol are visual representations of strict fractional math applied to square roots. When we combine the diagonal and cardinal crosses, we create a unified overlay. This diagram shows these angles fixed at specific degrees on the square of 9. Overlapping crosses divide the 360-degree rotation into 45-degree increments, creating an 8-spoke framework that price action navigates. As prices advance or decline, they pass through these 45-degree checkpoints, which often act as natural barriers. This explains why markets often reverse at complex decimals rather than round whole numbers. Those decimals frequently correspond to these specific geometric angles. This unified blueprint gives us a mathematical map, identifying the coordinates where market trends are statistically likely to pause or reverse. By organizing raw numerical data into this coordinate system, we have created a navigable model for price analysis. Now, we apply this geometry to the price charts to see how these theoretical angles correlate with real-world market pivots. This price chart for Teradyne shows the theory in practice. The numbers found on the 180-degree angle are drawn as horizontal lines, which accurately forecast the support and resistance levels at points A and B. In our next lecture, we will demonstrate the step-by-step process of building these support and resistance overlays for various assets. Subscribing ensures you won't miss that practical application. Mastering these grid coordinates moves your analysis from subjective observation to quantitative calculation. The Square of Nine suggests that market cycles are governed by geometric relationships. By understanding this math, we gain a clearer perspective on the structure behind price movement.